welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I am well. I've done some good movies this week. It's been fun. How about yourself?
Yeah, same here, actually.
Excellent. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'll start with what I presume would be the big one then, Wild Robot.
Wild Robot. So now, Wild Robot, I have heard massively positive things about.
It's brilliant, honestly.
Yeah, like I'd heard it works on a really nice level for kids, and it also has that kind of level for adults as well.
Yep.
Which is what these things used to be. So maybe a return to form.
It really is. It's exactly what you just said. It's got everything you expect from
when these things used to be regularly like this.
Yeah, that we used to get before it all got a bit sort of rubbish and samey and a bit preachy. This is just a really fun movie for everyone.
Oh, that's great.
So basically, we've got Roz, voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, who is a Rossum robot who crashes basically
right
on this sort of shore of the wild, as it were, and immediately wakes up, sort of thing, turns itself on, and starts asking for tasks. And it's in a sort of hilarious start. It's just wandering around asking animals for random tasks. I can do all these sorts of things, she's sort of saying, as she's sort of going around and trying to sort of get animals to give her a task.
Nice.
and failing miserably. And eventually she decides to work on a translation. So she sits there and she listens to all the animals and basically works out how to communicate with animals.
Right.
So then we're introduced to Fink, who is Pedro Pascal's fox character.
Right.
Who's a bit of a well, he's a fox, so he's what you expect
sly.
From a fox. He's sly, and he gets the robot to get him food, basically, and do sort of things that
I feel like that's what a fox would do, you know.
And the funniest thing about this, certainly for adults, is it deals with death quite quickly.
Oh wow!
There's a I'm not really spoiling it, but Roz, while she's sort of bounding around, I can't remember the specifics, but she falls off of the top of this sort of cliff onto a nest and destroys all the eggs but one and kills the mother.
Right.
In a complete accident.
Yeah.
And then the egg that is left immediately opens, and of course the little gosling imprints on her. So her task then is you've got to look after this creature that you accidentally killed the entire family of. And it proceeds from there. It's basically I think she gets told the tasks are make sure you bring it up, teach it how to fly, and then let it go, sort of thing.
Right.
So she's like, okay, I can do that, sort of, you know. So from there, she carries on doing all this sort of stuff that you sort of expect a mother to do, sort of kind of badly in a little, but also amazingly well as well. So she gets to sort of, and clearly she starts becoming more, I would say, human, but not really, because she's not dealing with humans. She's
gaining some sentience and gaining some emotion.
She gets emotions and sentience, and she gets sort of, her own imprinting on, she actually does become the mother of this gosling. And the scenes where it deals with death are sort of both. Well, the first one is tragic. Well, actually, no, the first one is really funny because it's a crab that she saved that then gets carried off by an eagle. You can hear it screaming in the distance as it's being flown. And we watched it. It was just absolutely hilarious. So my wife wanted to watch this, and I was like, okay, fine, we'll watch this then. I was a bit sort of, okay, in the last couple of years, these sort of things have been very hit and miss. But
yeah,
this was amazing.
oh, that's really good.
You've got Ving Rhames, you've got Matt Berry, you've got Bill Nye, and you've even got Mark Hamill, which these days is a blessing and a curse.
He's got a fantastic talent. So,
yes, he is. Catherine O'Hara as Pink Tell it's just so fun and really warm-hearted and sweet, and it's the sort of messages that you used to get in these sorts of movies. It's a sort of it may not be your real family, but it's the family you deal with, and obviously things like the company that she's the robot from sort of find out that she's out there somewhere and she's not behaving normally, and they want to recall her. And in the beginning, all she wants to do is be recalled. She wants to go out and do tasks for people because that's her job. And obviously, as she gets to know all these animals become her friends and family, and she wants to stay there. And it's just so warm-hearted and sweet, and the animation is beautiful, and it's really just a wonderful thing. And it's directed by Chris Saunders, who previously had worked on loads and loads of sort of other amazing animations like The Croods, but most famously, he is the voice of Stitch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he wrote it as well, but he's also and he was the writer on he was a writer on How to Train Your Dragon, which is one of my favourite of those cartoons, because How to Train Your Dragon is just brilliant. It's such a good movie, and they've all been good actually. And one of the things I love about the How to Train Your Dragon series is it's one of those rare things in a cartoon where each episode the characters get older. You never see that in sequels. They're always perpetually whatever age they start at. And with this one, you get a whole series of really cool things that just they age, they take lessons, and they move on. It's good. But this is just such fun. It's so sweet and so utterly charming and hilarious. It's got a nice sort of little dark streak going through it, for the adults to giggle at as well. And it's just a beautiful movie. I really loved it, and they've already greenlit a sequel, which I will completely watch when it comes out. It's just really fun, and I highly recommend it. I presume don't have kids, but
it sounds like the perfect kids movie. It's the kind of films that I saw in the cinema when I was a kid with my parents.
It's exactly that. It's a real beautiful
some
film.
Life lessons in there, some stuff for kids, some stuff for parents. Good family fun.
Yeah, and it's not trying to choke you with its message or anything. It's just again, it's just sweet. It's a really lovely, sweet movie that I highly, highly recommend. And all the voice acting is great.
Yeah.
It's what you expect from basically all those people. They've all done. I'm pretty sure most of these have done voice acting before. And just real fun. I loved it. Can't recommend it enough.
Wow. Well, that is Wild Robot from 2024, obviously. Okay, I don't know what to do next. I will go with I Saw the TV Glow.
Okay. It's been a bit of a mystery to me, because I saw the trailer and thought, that looks interesting. The reviews were coming out, and I was like, that doesn't sound like what the trailer sort of promised.
I would say this is barely a horror movie. Maybe not even a horror movie. I think this is going to be a Marmite movie. If you want a movie that makes some sense, it's probably not the movie for you. Effectively, this is a movie about a teenager. Or it starts off as he's a child. He's about 8 or 9, I guess. And he meets this girl who introduces him to this TV show that he's like heard about but never watched. Is something he's always wanted to watch but hasn't actually watched. It's called The Pink Opaque, and it's basically a it's kind of like Buffy, I guess, or like Goosebumps kind of thing. It's kind of that young adult kind of horror kind of thing. Or maybe like Eerie, Indiana kind of stuff. Like kind of weird. Yeah, it's kind of like that, but like and it's kind of cool because when they're kids, you kind of see it how they see it as kids, and then later when he's an adult, he kind of rewatches it and he sees it for what it actually looked like. Yeah. And you get kind of a direct comparison between what he's seeing as a kid and then what he's seeing as an adult. But yeah, so effectively he's introduced to this girl that he ends up hanging out with. He goes to her house to watch this show. He lies to his parents and says he's staying at a friend's house when he's actually going to this girl's house to watch this show. And effectively, this movie is bizarre. But effectively, eventually the girl they grow up into like teenage years, and then eventually the girl goes to run away and basically says to him, "Hey, I want you to run away with me. We don't belong here. We this is not us. This is not our life. We have a different life." And he kind of agrees, but ultimately gets scared and chooses not to do that. And the movie kind of broadly kind of deals with his decision to not take that life, right, and go down that route. But it's all very Lynchian in it. Okay. It's very dreamlike. It's very mysterious and weird and just kind of yeah, like I said, I don't think you're if you're going into this looking for a tight plot that's going to make absolute sense to you, it won't.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I love it.
No, so do I, right? So
really, but yes, I completely understand.
It could go one of two ways, though, can't it? Where I feel like Twin Peaks will infuriate some people. Yeah. Whereas I love it. so I get it. Like some people.
My wife really doesn't like weird movies. It's like I'll show her a trailer and go, "What do you think?" And she'll go, "No, I'm not watching that." But she really loves Twin Peaks. It's really weird.
Yeah, well, this definitely has a Lynchian kind of feel to it. I believe the director is trans and has said that this is like a trans allegory of like deciding whether to transition or not to transition, and the kind of decision not to, and then the kind of effects later in life. And I didn't know that until I'd finished watching it. I was like reading up on it for this. And that makes perfect sense now that I know that. But going in, I didn't necessarily think about that. And I just saw it as kind of like a decision in life, like kind of fork in the road, and how you see your life is a child, and how you see things, how you think your life should go. And then, of course, later in life, unless you're me, you get a family and you kind of move on with your life, and there's that kind of maybe some regret in like, oh well, if only I'd done this instead. Obviously now knowing that it's a trans allegory, it makes all the sense in the world, but I don't think this movie necessarily has to be that. Like it works on multiple levels. I think this movie is beautifully shot. I think it's really, really well shot. The acting is superb across the board. Justice Smith, I think, is the
I like Justice Smith. He's cool.
He's very good, and in this, he's amazing. Like you can really tell he is. He doesn't know where he fits in, and he's just very kind of awkward and unsure. And it's really great great and awful to kind of see where he ends up in his life, because he was too scared, basically. Yeah. He was too scared to make the decision he probably felt like he should make. So yeah, I thought this film was fantastic. I think it's really well directed. It's amazingly visually really stunning. The acting is superb. Bridget Lundy Payne is also superb in this.
She was in a Netflix show I used to watch. I can't remember what it was called. Hang on, let me just have a look. No, it's not. Oh, I forgot she was in Bill and Ted's. She was one of the.
Oh yes, she was. Yes,
she was Billy. She was in this Atypical. Mm-hmm. About it's a series about a boy who's got like Asperger's, I think it is, and like the sister, and she was really good in that. So yeah, I like her a lot. I just noticed in the cast, Fred Durst is in it.
I don't even remember seeing Fred Durst in it. So where? Maybe it was Fred Durst. Maybe Fred Durst was the ice cream monster or something.
Apparently, he was Frank. Don't know if that makes.
It might be. Maybe he plays the dad, because you don't see his dad. Like his dad, I think the only time you ever see his dad is when he's driving the car and he's kind of got his back turned. He kind of turns vaguely, but doesn't actually look at the camera directly. Maybe that's him. I don't know. What does Fred Durst even look like in 2024? Would I recognize him anymore? I don't know. I remember him from like 2001 with the red cap. Like, I'm guessing he doesn't look like that anymore.
It looks like just an older Fred Durst with no hair.
Oh, okay. But he might play the dad. I'm not entirely sure. It's not a big part, because I'm sure I would have noticed if he was in it long enough.
Yeah.
This is very much from the perspective of the kids.
Right.
You know, it's kind of a coming of age and a kind of, you know, fork in the road decision.
The trailer makes it very much look like. Did you ever see that Channel Zero?
No, I didn't. I think you reviewed that one though, right?
Yeah, it was a really good sort of creepypasta thing, and it was one of those sort of. The first season was this, and the second season was a different story sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the second season wasn't as good. It was about I think it was about a house. There was a load of kids going in and seeing different things. But the first one, the Channel Zero, was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's about, you know, a bunch of kids who remember this TV show that no one else seems to remember.
Well, so very much this, yeah. Yeah, very much
that. I thought, oh, this must be like another movie of that. But then when like you said, when the reviews were coming out, it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like that at all.
Yeah, I think it's
entirely different.
I think, fortunately, I just came across this movie. I hadn't seen any trailers or reviews. I get the impression that the trailer's very misleading.
Yeah.
And I think it's sending people down a route that it's kind of not. And like I said, I don't even know how you would classify this film. I wouldn't really say it's a horror movie. It's more of a coming of age movie, but with that heavy Lynchian kind of feel. But I don't think it's like necessarily like derivative or anything. It's just got that kind of dreamlike quality, you know, like Italian horror kind of quality maybe.
Yeah.
But not horror, I don't think. But it's bizarre. I like I said, if you're looking for something that is going to make all the sense in the world, you're not going to get that here. But there's that feeling of mystery and weirdness that I really like, and it kind of, you know, even though something may not be making all the sense in the world from a plot perspective, it just kind of sucks you in, and you're just like, I'm loving the mystery and just the weirdness of this movie. It's a very strange movie, but I think it's
anyway.
Sorry?
You're convincing me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It's very, very odd, though. I'm saying this because I really enjoyed it. I think you will enjoy it. I know some people will fucking hate this movie, so I'm just like putting it out there. If like weird stuff that may not make all the sense in the world is not for you, and that kind of dreamlike Lynchian quality is not for you, then I would avoid this one. But yeah, I think if you're into Twin Peaks and that kind of stuff, I really, really recommend this one. I thought this was really, really good.
Okay.
So what else have you watched?
So, well, I'll stick with the very weird and some people might not like it.
Oh, okay.
So I have to give a shout out to a channel on YouTube, because so there's a channel called The Back Focus.
Never heard of them.
And well, I hadn't either. So this was a video that just popped up on my feed for things like, you know, recommendations.
Yeah. Every now and again, YouTube does knock it out of the park with their recommendations.
Yeah, well,
it's not very often, but it does happen.
It's 5 indie sci-fi movies that you've never heard of, sort of thing.
Okay.
And those always intrigued me, because most of the time you click on them and it's like, yeah, I've seen all those.
The thing I like now is when they chop those things up and they give them the titles on each bit, because I can just look through and go, yeah, I know all of them by.
Yes.
I don't need to play it anymore.
Yeah. So this I you know, and occasionally you'll get one movie and you'll go, okay, I haven't actually seen that one. That sounds interesting. This one, I've only seen one of them.
Oh, wow.
Which was Vespers.
Is this going to be the next couple of weeks? It's just going to be you going through this list.
Enough, yeah. So Vespers was the one I had seen, and I've reviewed that one. But the other 4 were like, oh, okay, I've not heard any of those, and I've liked them more. So two of the movies I'll be doing today.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably do the others next time. But so the first one I will go with is Things Will Be Different.
Now, funny enough, I almost watched this.
Okay.
Like this week.
That's a shame, because I'd have liked to have discussed it with you.
Yeah, well, you know, by the time you told me, I'd already made, it was too late, but... Yeah.
So, this is so it's, I guess you could say it starts off as a heist movie, if you like. Not that you see the heist, you just see the aftermath. So, it's a brother and sister, an estranged brother and sister, who have just pulled off some job. You never actually get the details of the job, really. You don't know what they did, but you know they've got a shitload of money, and they're escaping. And the brother has this plan to spend 2 weeks in a house, hiding, basically. And it's not just a house in the middle of nowhere. It's a house that basically takes you out of time.
Right.
So they get to the house, and he has this book which has instructions, and they have to set these 2 clocks a certain way, and then, because when they get to the house, it's a sort of run-down, sort of grotty house that people have obviously been sort of just squatting in, because there's like empty bottles everywhere, and grungy mattress, and broken furniture and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they set these times, and then you can like hear the police siren sort of in the distance. They go into this cupboard, close the door in the dark, and there's a rotary phone in there. And they have to phone this thing, give this answer, put the phone down, and then when they leave the cupboard, the house is completely changed. It's shiny and new, and there's like all lovely new furniture, and the fridge is completely full, and there's like bottles of booze in the cupboards, and so they've then got 2 weeks in which they have to wait, and then they can leave. So they do the 2 weeks, and they as I said, they're an estranged brother and sister. They don't go into too much detail of what exactly happened, but at some point they got in trouble. The brother left the sister, and she ended up, I think, pregnant and in trouble, and she has a daughter that she's desperate to get back to. So she doesn't like the fact that she's got to spend 2 weeks here, because she doesn't want to be away from her daughter. They then, once the 2 weeks is up, they sort of bond over this sort of period, and they get drunk lots, and you have this lovely little montage of them sort of how they're spending these 2 weeks. And of course, every time they finish all the food, they close the door, open the door again, and it's all full, so everything gets replaced.
Right.
So when they start finding strange things. So first of all, there's this locked door that they don't go into, and then one day the brother finds that it's open, and he goes in there, and there's a burnt body in there. And he thinks that it's weird, and there's something written on this sort of, I think it's an old church,
right?
And there's something written on this thing, and they then discover that they shouldn't be there. They find this. There's an amazing way that they talk to. So this safe appears from nowhere. So they got the combination. They open the safe, and there's a tape recorder in it. So they use this tape recorder. There's a thing that says, use this recorder, then lock it, and reopen it, sort of thing. So they lock it, reopen it, and then they can sort of talk to the other side, as it were.
Right.
They learn that there's another side of this that's pushing back from one side, and the other side, and with this tape recorder, they record what they say, and then they play it sort of backwards, as it were, and it says what the other side are saying.
Mm.
And they're told they shouldn't be there. they, they then get this task. They're told someone is coming, and we want you to kill them. We want you to take them out because they shouldn't be coming. But they're going to other houses that they have, sort of thing. It's very vague, all the sort of things they tell them.
Yeah.
They're told if they ever, they shouldn't be there, and if they want to get out, once they get out, they will wipe them and let them carry on with their lives, or they'll kill, or they can just die.
Right.
So they sort of agree to it because they find that they can't escape the house. There's like these sort of like chimney looking sort of piles of rock which seem to mark the border of this time sort of stasis thing. And when the sister tries to get past the border, she ends up puking blood, and it's like, okay, so yeah,
bad idea.
Let's not go past that.
Yeah.
Any further than that. So they're told, wait for this person to turn up, and they end up being there for. They're told they don't know when they're gonna come, but they're told it could be any time. So what then proceeds is they're waiting there for a long time, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, so I'm not gonna go into any of the details. But I will say it's a really cool, interesting sort of time thing that doesn't deal with the sort of the usual sort of time stuff. It's a case of just go with it time stuff. It's a sort of it's not a simple sort of Back to the Future job. It's are they in control? Who's in control of them? Is it themselves? And there's all these, they go through the theories of who's
right
on the other side of, fucking over, and it's like, and it's mostly just these two actors. It's Adam David Thompson and Riley Dandy, who are really good as I found them interesting. It's clearly they've had a split at some point. They hadn't really been in contact with each other much. This job sounds like a weird way to get back in with your family, but sure, whatever works for you. And then there's this whole thing opens up for them, and it's completely how they both deal with it, and how they're just trapped in this house where everything's there for them. It's not like they're going to starve or anything. The food replenishes, the booze replenishes, and Sydney, the sister, she's eager to find information on, and so she's going through all the paperwork that's in this house, and she figures out who owned this house originally, or as far as she could find out, and she comes up with all these sort of ideas, and the brother basically just the opposite. She's like got a project, and he just sort of crumbles and goes a little loopy and keeps in his room for a while. And I really loved it. I loved all this sort of things just appear, and they communicate through scratched in pieces of wood, and this safe with the tape in it, and it's really interesting because it's just two people in a house, really. But I really enjoyed it, and I guess it's another one I watched with my wife, and my wife was terribly unsatisfied with the ending. And
right.
Not so much with the ending, but just with the movie in general. I think she likes it to make more sense, and I think I didn't find it.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? These both of these movies. I saw the TV Glow and this. Things will be different. They both fall into that category, and I think for me and you, it's the same. Where it's like it doesn't need to make sense as long as it's compelling enough and the characters are interesting enough, and I'm willing to go along for the ride.
Yeah. And it really is one of those ride movies. It's like I totally want to go see what happens. I want and they don't necessarily tell you how anything works. Well, they don't tell you how anything works. They don't really tell you. I guess I could see why people would find it unsatisfactory, but for me, it's like, no, I completely thought that was great. It's that whole, for me, it's the universe is imperfect, so why not? You know what I mean? My wife was like, yeah, that's why I like watching movies that have a structure. That she likes to be there where she's going, and this one doesn't do that. It's not, and I'm not saying it's completely out there. It's not full on, weird Lynchian stuff. It's just slightly janky time stuff that makes you think, oh, shit, what is happening here? And they don't necessarily want to tell you that. So it's I guess it's closer to something like Looper than sort of Back to the Future or
sure,
Hot Tub Time Machine or anything that you can think of in that deals with time travel. The
FAQ of time travel.
The movie I'll review after this is also from that list, and it's another sort of time movie, but in a completely different way.
Right.
So I wouldn't get this, but I would recommend this to anybody who loves a sort of weird sci-fi, because it's a lovely made little movie. I think it's got very low budget because it's pretty much just two people in a house. But they're both really cool actors. The director, Michael Felker, sets up some really interesting things, and there's some really lovely sort of weird shots where the brother and sister are they're sort of talking, but they're kind of it's like they're addressing you. So it's really sort of weird and kind of cool, and I liked it a lot. I think, like you said about the last movie, it will not satisfy a lot of people.
Yeah, it's just going to be one of those Marmite kind of things.
Yeah, but I think if you're willing to go with it and you like a little weirdness, the guy you previously had done, I think, The Endless, which I reviewed a number.
I liked The Endless a lot. Yeah,
The Endless is great. That's another one of those weird movies that's like a loop and it's just odd, and I really like that movie. And this is a similar sort of feeling. So if you like, I think if you liked The Endless, then you'll definitely like this. It's really nice. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I highly recommend it to anybody who's willing to go with the weirdness.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it was on my list. I just didn't get to it this week. So yeah, I will definitely be checking it out. I do have another movie, a full movie. However, I was making the slides for this episode, and I was like, do you know what, sod it, because I think this was probably going to come up in the news. I think you were going to probably bring it up in the news, but I want to talk about it as its own thing. Short movie, Unification.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how
many times have you watched it?
Quite a few, more than is healthy.
Like 10 times.
But I was like, do you know what? No, this deserves its own slide, because I know you will have watched it. I didn't even need to ask you if you'd watched it. I was like, you definitely have watched this.
I thought the same thing with you as well. I thought I won't bother because I'm sure he's watched it.
Yeah. So the 765874 Unification is the latest short in a series of shorts, actually, that are all related from the Roddenberry archives.
Yeah.
And this is I think the first one they did was we saw the recovery of the Enterprise D saucer section, didn't we? We saw that in part 1. We saw Spock kind of visiting the grave of Kirk in part 2. This is a Star Trek short, if you didn't guess by now. And then now we see Kirk. We see William Shatner's Kirk, played by Sam Witwer, I think.
Yeah, Sam Witwer.
And then they've done the de-age CGI Shatner face.
So it's a combination of makeup and and sort of de-aging-y stuff, which they do amazing. Because the guy who plays, I've seen the guy who played Spock, and I think that's
Lawrence Selleck. I think.
Yes.
And now he has quite a Spock. He has quite a Nimoy face to begin with, which I think helps quite a bit with the process. But I also want to say, before we start talking about it too much, Robin Curtis is Saavik.
Oh man,
I was so happy. I was like, that's really nice.
Welling up when I was welling up when you see his hand touching the princess. That's Kirk.
Yep.
And then when they got to the list of the people and Savok's there, I was like, oh my god, wow, just awesome.
This to me, we've talked about this on the show before. Rogue One being a notable one. De-aging, bringing people back from the dead, is a tricky thing. And I at one point I always thought, well, I think it's always going to be in kind of bad taste, and I'm not quite down with it. I think now I'm not a big Fast and Furious fan, but I feel like the end of the one with Paul Walker CGI, that was obviously a touching tribute, and I think that works. And I think it works here with Nimoy's Spock, where it's clearly this beautiful tribute to Leonard Nimoy. And obviously this is non-profit as well, so it's not like they were even doing it for any money or anything. This was just pure, a pure fan project. But I would say, you do get some jankiness in that de-aged Shatner, and you do get some jankiness.
The head sort of doesn't look quite right on the body.
But you know what? It goes to show that the artistic intent just overshadows all of that. It doesn't matter. I was captivated. And do you know what amazed me? For a short with no dialogue, they captured Kirk's face and his emotions, those little movements in his face that you don't even think about when you watch Star Trek movies or Star Trek the series. You don't really think about it, but you just see those little movements and you're like, that is Kirk. That is Kirk.
When he sees
the little smile and the eyebrows, everything.
She moves aside and you get, what?
Yes.
I'm presuming he's Spock's son.
I would imagine.
And they don't even say anything.
They don't need to.
See his fucking face, and it tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
It's the complete comprehension of who that is and what.
Yes, it's a wonderful lesson in visual storytelling. There is no dialogue. There's no dialogue needed. I think
dialogue is basically from Kirk's speech at the end of Wrath of Khan. About returning to Genesis planet.
Yeah, someday I'll return.
That's basically the only dialogue you get.
Yeah, but no new dialogue, I should say, and no one talking. It's a voiceover that he's hearing.
No.
Now this is kept kind of, I think, somewhat intentionally vague. But it gives a clear message of Kirk kind of, helping Spock in his final moments pass on. That is what I took from it.
Yeah.
Whether he's still in the Nexus, whether it's a Nexus thing, or whether it's who knows.
I think there's a suggestion of that.
And there is something of a suggestion of it.
Yeah, and there's the other part is that it's also linked to, Picard season 3.
Yes.
Which I can deal with that. It's just like, fine, I'll just...
Season 3 of Picard is fine. I liked it. It's the only season of Picard I liked.
Never seen it, and I'm not likely to. But I can kind of, in my brain, it's just okay. That's a different universe. I don't give a fuck.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't mind that. And I think there was the hint, the suggestion seems that they've brought him back from that body in Picard season 4.
In season 3 of Picard, his remains are at Daystrom.
Yeah.
But whatever.
And I think
that's a minor thing in an otherwise very good, surprisingly good series.
Yeah.
And I must specifically say just that series, not season 2 or 1, just season 3. But yeah, and I mean,
and I think the alien that hands him his badge, is from Discovery.
I didn't know what the fuck that was. That was the one part I was like, who is this?
I was listening to, I can't remember who it was now. It might have been, I think Gary from Nerdrotic said that I think he's from Discovery and he can dimension hop.
Okay, I had no idea who that was, so that explains that, I guess.
He's a cool looking alien.
Yeah, he looks great. At first I thought he was a Reman. Because he kind of looked like a Reman to me.
He does have a very, very Reman looking.
I was like, maybe Remans are Starfleet officers now. I don't know. But yeah, so I thought this was beautiful, honestly, and like you, very touching. Particularly the final shot.
Yep.
But like you said, even those little moments, just those little facial expressions.
Yeah.
The moment when he sees his younger self, and you get that great shot where they're all together.
Yeah.
You've got like Generations Kirk, which is who you're following through most of it.
Yep.
Then you've got he meets his early Enterprise days, and then he meets the kind of Wrath of Khan kind of time, and just that kind of just the.
And I'm sure that you could say that that all they've done is taken the expressions that they've used from different movies. And
well, they may well have done.
Like, that's probably what they have done, and I don't.
Well, certainly with the Generations one, there is actually an actor's performance there.
Yeah, it's how they put it together that works, and it's remarkable.
It really is. The intent and the visual storytelling in this is honestly second to none. I was blown away by this.
I don't know how much Shatner was used in it, because I know he was a producer.
I don't think he's in it. I think he just produced it and probably had a say in like visually.
I think he has said that this is probably the last time he'll ever be Kirk. So.
I think this is like, honestly, I cannot think of a better send off for Kirk and Spock than this short.
No.
This is fine. Like, honestly, if they want to one day re-release Generations and add this as a bonus feature on the Blu-ray, I will be more than happy to just have that be like great, because then that's the proper. I mean, I know Spock turns up in Next Gen, but yeah, and McCoy, I guess, and Scotty, a lot of them do. Fuck off. Anyway, the point is, if you were like, Generations is effectively them handing over the Generations came after that anyway, so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it's the handover.
I think we seem to be in the minority that I don't mind Kirk's death in that. I think it's fine. It's the whole.
He died the way. The biggest disappointment for me with Generations, I always wanted Kirk on the Enterprise. I wanted him to be on the Enterprise D. Yeah. To have a moment where maybe Picard is on the planet and Kirk is on the Enterprise and he just sits in the chair. You know what I mean? Just cool. Give us that moment. But Kirk has always been that kind of physical fight kind of guy, and it kind of worked, and it harkened back to not a great movie, but there are bits I love of it, Star Trek V. Yeah. Where he says, I knew I wouldn't die here because I knew when I died I'd die alone, and he kind of does, or at least without his friends anyway. This was honestly, I mean, this is about 10 minutes long, including the credits. It's not long.
I think it's actually 8 minutes long, the actual thing itself.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely shorter because the credits are quite long. But honestly, this had such an impact on me this week. I was like, I'm giving it its own slide, and I just want to talk about it. Because I knew you'd want to talk about it anyway. So I was like, just put it out there.
Just wonderful. It's kind of everything you want from a tribute to two amazing characters.
It's a wonderful send-off to both characters.
That, we've said before many times, have been with us since we were since before we existed.
Well, in my life, I have always known Kirk and Spock.
Yes, exactly.
As far back as I can remember, I've been watching them, and you can take away from this short whatever you'd like, because, like I said, it is kind of vague. To me, this was Kirk visiting Spock on his deathbed.
Yep.
And they're together again and exploring. I saw an interview with Shatner, which I think was part of this. They did like an interview with him.
Yeah.
And he was saying, and I think this has fixed it. And I wonder whether this was his input or part of his input, because he said, and I never got this either, so I think he did deliver it kind of wonky.
Yeah.
He said in this interview that his intent with his death was that Kirk wouldn't be afraid of death. Kirk would be excited and amazed by what comes next. Yeah. So his intention, his intended delivery, according to what Shatner said in this interview, was he was meant to say, oh my, like he's amazed by what he's seeing, where he's going. But it kind of comes off wrong. And he said, I think I delivered it wrong. And he said, I didn't realize until I saw the movie that I actually say, oh my, as if it's like a scared thing. That apparently wasn't his intention. And I think this short corrects that, where they're both looking out to what comes next, you know? Wonderful.
Yeah, I think we probably mentioned that when we did with the movie.
We probably did. It's been you know my memory.
Yeah, and it's but I think it does sound a little odd, but I think that's kind of what I got from the way he says that. It's, you know, that, oh my, this is the next thing, you know, and it is a slightly janky way he says it, so I can see both ways. But oh, what a wonderful thing it really is. It's
a beautiful send off.
It's just perfect to do, and I don't know whether this is right as well, but I think the suggestion with the Kirk thing and the whole, you know, being brought back is suggestion of that the books that Shatner wrote, or I say wrote, he.
What, The Return? That is like, oh my god!
It's just like 3 of them, I think.
Yeah, I've
never read them, but I've heard both.
Dude, get the audio. The audio book of The Return is amazing. Shatner does every voice of every character in TNG, including the women. It's glorious. It's fucking glorious.
Oh man,
it's bad, but it's great.
Oh, that sounds so.
It's like it's got to be heard to be believed.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
But you know, I mean, fair enough. He had this idea to bring Kirk back, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it. But I think now, you know, obviously he's not going to do anything now, and this is you couldn't have asked for a better send off than this.
No,
this is great. So I'm excited to see what else they do. I mean, maybe they'll move on to other characters and stuff, and why not?
Maybe. I love that it opens up with I can never remember the name of it. Gary something, isn't it?
Gary 7, yeah.
No, not Gary 7. Gary 7 was from the.
Gary 7 was in one of the shorts, though, wasn't he?
The one at the beginning of this was the guy from the first episode, the one who gets the god powers.
Oh yeah. I can't think. Yeah.
I'm sure his name's Gary as well. But yeah, and it's like, okay, what was that about? Because at the end of that episode, they kill him, but that's sort of suggesting that he's still around, which was cool.
I just love, like, again, this goes back to that, like, it doesn't necessarily have to give us all the answers. This was really compelling, and it's vague enough that you can take away whatever you kind of want from it, and I really like that.
And I think maybe if they would have made them speak, as it were, maybe that would have taken something away. Maybe it was probably a good idea that they don't have any dialogue.
It would have been hard because I think Shatner's voice is clearly aged now. And lips are very difficult if you start. Although they nailed everything else, so I don't know. It's fine. It didn't need it though.
It
honestly.
has certainly come a long way from, you know, the aging Patrick Stewart and stuff.
Oh my god, that plastic thing that turns up at the end of Wolverine Origins or whatever the fuck that movie's called. Yeah, this is. I mean,
even Tron's got some ropey. You know, the mouths in particular, like, you know, as you said, are
in Legacy, yeah.
Yeah, they're very janky sometimes. You know, some of the mouths.
They kind of get away with it when they're on the grid and it's Clue, but when they do it and it's meant and it's meant to be Jeff Bridges in the real world, it's like, oh no, that doesn't work. that doesn't work. But yeah, like I said, I think artistic intent and the, you know, direction will overcome any jankiness that is in this. Yeah, I thought this was wonderful. So
yeah, like you said, I'm really interested to see what they do next.
Me too. Yeah,
maybe they'll go on to and do something with the next gen crew or something. You know,
I mean, why not? I was super impressed with this when they were just doing the saucer section getting removed. I thought that was stunning. I never knew it was going to get to this. This is a whole nother level.
I'm in the minority with this one. I hate the Enterprise D. I think it's fucking ugly.
I know you do.
Never liked it. However, when they showed the saucer section and them recovering, even I had a sort of you know,
yeah.
It's still, you know, that ship has still been with me for, again, most of my life. And I still have a fondness for it, even though I think it's ugly as sin.
Yeah,
And
I see. I still think I've got a model of it over there. I still think I agree with you. It reminds me a lot. To me, it's a lot like the White Star from Babylon 5. Certain angles, it's ugly as fuck, and other angles, I quite like it. And I can never quite. It depends which angle I'm looking at it from. But I agree. I think I like it because it's clearly a sciencey thing, not a war thing. Like it's much more of a science. And it's the end. It's the Federation at their height, isn't it? That they've reached peak fucking,
Yeah, and I mean, there's the other things that go with it. Like it's a much more family orientated ship. It's the bridge is the size of several houses.
Well, we said it's a fucking hotel, right?
It is. Yeah. The Hilton D.
Yes.
And I've never been comfortable with that. The weird sort of hominess of it. I guess it doesn't. It's never. It
always felt like it would work better if the Enterprise D or the Galaxy class in general was designed to go out like fucking Voyager to the Delta Quadrant. And then you're like, okay, bring your families, and this is basically a homely place to live while we travel. But when they're like just still in the Alpha Quadrant, you're like, really? You can warp back to Earth pretty quick when you got shore leave and stuff. You don't have to bring your family with you.
Yeah, it's a one of those things. But as I said, that I did have that little pang of nostalgia for it.
Yeah.
On that short when you see it.
But I never knew we'd cut to this. This is a whole nother level. You're thinking that when you get a very brief shot of Spock, and I was like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize they were going to do this. This was really emotional.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about it. It's just fully amazingly beautiful thing. I think anybody who loves Kirk and Spock will adore it.
I'd be very surprised if you don't. It's superb tribute and a lovely send off.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else have you watched?
So my second movie from that list is it's an older movie. So it came
2023, I think.
2023, yeah. I say older movie. No. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong probably. Aporia.
Yeah, that's how I would pronounce it. So we would both pronounce that wrong if that's wrong.
Yeah, which is a scientific term or sort of thing.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's to do with sort of how do it. It's a weird one. It's one of those sort of. It's a sort of like that Schrodinger's cat thing. It's a sort of weird dilemma sort of thing in science. So I was immediately on board of this movie because it has a main performance of Judy Greer,
who is wonderful.
Who I adore. I think she's wonderful, and it's very rare that she gets to be the main character.
Yeah, she's usually like the best supporting character in a movie.
Yeah, I think there's this. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. She's got an autobiography, and the name of the biography is I think it's I don't know what you know.
I don't know what I recognise you from.
My Life as a Co-Star.
Amazing.
Which is just brilliant. I love that.
That's some nice confidence and self-awareness there.
Yeah,
I like that.
So this one we've got directed by Jared Moshe, and it's
written as well.
Sorry,
written as well.
Yes, and stars Judy Greer, Ed Guthriegy, Payman Maddie, and Faith Harmon. So this is starts off with Greer's character of Sophie, who is struggling to keep her family together. Sort of 18 months ago, her husband was killed by a drunk driver, and she's excuse me. Her daughter is sort of becoming more distant from her. She's sort of failing at school. She doesn't do any of the things that she used to do, and Sophie herself is depressed and just struggling to cope with work and her life and just everything in general. And she's approached by a friend of her husband's, Kareem, who has made a machine that can fire a particle into time to kill someone, like a sort of magic bullet, basically. And so, the drunk driver has got off. She's like devastated that he gets to do his, just fucking walk around while her husband's dead. And he says, I worked on this with your husband. He was because her husband was I think he was a physicist as well. And he says he was originally trying to build a time machine so that he could go back, and he says his family were killed in, I think it's Pakistan or somewhere like that. His family were basically murdered, and he was the only one who got away. So he was trying to make a time machine so that he could go back and fix his family. But what he ended up creating was not exactly that. It basically just it generates this particle that he can send back, but it's only powerful enough to go back. I can't remember what the range is, but it's not far enough back to help his family.
Right.
So he says to her, "We can use this machine to kill the drunk driver before he kills your husband." And at first she's like, "Oh yeah, bollocks, whatever." But then, she sees him, the drunk driver, and she sees his family, and she gets really upset, and she goes back. She goes, "Let's just do it. Let's do it. Fine. I believe you. Let's do it." So they work out exactly where he is by using the coordinates from a photo. So they look at a load of photos of him from, I don't know, Facebook or whatever the hell it is, and they find one that's like, oh, he looks like he's at some conference, and they give you this. He gets the codes, and he types in this code. He turns the machine on, and the machine splutters, pulls smoke, and that's it. And they're like, okay, what now? It's like, well, that's it. It's done.
Done. We did it.
Yeah, so it's either done or it isn't. And she doesn't believe him. She, gets angry and goes home. And when she gets home, her husband's there. So, well, no, it's not him. Anyway, her husband's back. It's not quite, she didn't go home. Anyway, her husband, she gets a text from him. So
right.
She goes to a ball game or something, and he's there. So they realize it works, and her friend is eager to use this on, like, I can take out a serial killer. It's like, we just think of the good we can do here. There's a load of people that were killed sort of recently, murdered, and he does it on his own. And he says when he's explaining what happened, he says, "Do you remember this case of these murdered people?" And they're like, "No." So it's like, right. So basically, if you're in the room with the machine when it's switched on and worked, only you will retain the memories from the last world, as it were, the last iteration.
Mm.
So it never changed anything for them. It just is. But he remembers that before he killed whoever this person was, that these people were murdered. And you see little ripples from what that does. Well, then they get this, then she finds, the wife and daughter of the guy who they killed. And she's now struggling. They've lost their house. And their daughter is she's ill and she needs medication, and she gets and Judy Greer gets fuck, we ruined another family's life. We fucked them over. And he's like, okay, yes. So what are we going to do about it? It's like, well, we've got to try and find out who ruined them, because she had a business, she had this bakery, and she lost it to some guy. So they're like, right, what we'll do is we'll take out this guy, and she'll have money, and it will all change, and we'll be fine.
No.
Right.
You need to watch Butterfly Effect, people. Just don't. The more you do this, the worse it will get. Just stop. Walk away.
So very much like the Butterfly Effect.
Yeah.
It's the consequences of what happens from these changes, and it almost feels like the further you go, because he keeps refining this machine, he's like tinkering with it, and I'll slightly spoil something. There's a bit where they come to the realization that he can now no longer, the scientist who made it, Kareem, he can no longer save his family.
Right. Because
if he saves his family, he will no longer be there to make the machine.
Okay. Yeah.
He'll be in his own country with his family, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Or he could be anywhere, So that will also mean they didn't save him.
Yeah.
The husband. So, there's your dilemma stuff that comes. And I'm not going to say anything about what happens later or anything like that.
It sounds like a very interesting setup for a film.
So this the difference between this and the other is that this one is a lot more grounded. It's a lot more. If anything, it's more of just a sort of a love story between this family and and Julie Greer is, as you'd expect, fucking amazing. She's so wonderful in this.
She always is.
Yeah, and Eddie Guthrie as the husband he's really charming, and when he's got this sort of feeling that when he's back, he doesn't know he's back. For him, he's never been away. It's the timeline immediately altered when they, but he knows something's different. His wife is different. His wife's reacting. And you do get like minus things that change, like she goes to work and she's no longer on the shifts that she was on before. She's in a different thing, and it's like, oh, that's weird. But doesn't really think that much of it. It's just, she just sort of like goes, oh, okay, well, this is just how it is now. I just have a different set of patients and stuff. And she sort of walks past this patient that she previously was looking after. And of course he doesn't know who she is.
Yeah.
And she's just looking at him like, oh, I looked after this dude. I know who he is. And but he just stares at her blankly as she walks by. It's really lovely. It's like I said, the complete sort of opposite of the other one. It's just it's not the big sort of bombastic time machine movie. It's literally just how this family is coping with things, and how your decisions and what you decide to do can have completely devastating effects on everything, and no one will know but you. So it's really cool. I really loved it. It
sounds great.
It's another movie that clearly has a very low budget, but what it does is just great, because it really is just a bunch of people talking and walking around. And I like, a lot of people I've seen don't like the prop, and it's like, well, it looks like an engine with lots of parts on it. That's exactly what it looks like. It's a weird janky looking machine. I don't see any problem with it. It looks exactly like someone put it together in their spare time in their bed.
I mean, watch Primer.
Yeah, Primer.
See how you feel about that time machine.
Primer is one of those movies that I've seen a couple of times, and I still need to watch it again.
I adore Primer.
It's such a good movie.
It's a wonderful film.
It's one of the best time travel.
It's certainly one of the tightest time travel movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This sounds really interesting, though. I will definitely check this one out.
Personally, I preferred the previous one.
Okay.
It appealed to me slightly more.
Yeah.
In its weirdness and stuff. But only in the minorest of ways, because this is just pure from Judy Greer being the main star in a movie, and it's worth it just for that.
Yeah,
and it's certainly easier to go with than the other one. So I think it's more people will enjoy this movie than the other, because it's a lot more straight. It's a lot less sort of weird occurrences and things appearing out of nowhere. It's not like
sure.
that.
Yeah.
It's, obviously things do change because of the nature of what's going on, but they're not as, it's not as sort of like, in your face like the other one is.
Mm.
I would really certainly recommend it to anybody who loves Judy Greer. I'd not even heard of this one. This one completely passed me by.
I must admit, I hadn't heard of it until you sent it to me to add to the list.
Yeah, it completely passed me by. I didn't know about it, and as I say, the channel, the back focus completely sort of like, and there's two more on that list that I will definitely watch and review. But this, I really, really loved it. It's really cool. It's a nice little sort of small, sci-fi movie that I think more people should see, because it's just really well made and really nice.
Sounds really cool. I
think some people might be there's an end. The ending of it has this sort of how do I explain it without? Let's just say the end, I think, seems to have been problematic for some viewers.
Okay. For
me, it was perfect. I think it didn't need anything else.
Cool. Well, I will definitely check it out. I'm going to check both of these out, I think, and I'll let you know.
They're pretty. If you like time travel sort of movies, these two are really good examples in their own different ways. When I say time travel, it's not really time travel. It's it's time adjacent, time travel adjacent. It's timeline changing. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really loved it.
Cool.
I recommend this one too.
Yeah, I will definitely check that out. So my final movie is Absolution from 2024, directed by Hans Peter Moland, starring Liam Neeson. This is kind of the second.
I was say you did one.
Not so long ago, I did this again. I did in the Land of Saints and Sinners.
Ah, yes, that was it.
And this is another one where it's like, I feel like, obviously Liam Neeson had the tragedy with his wife and then started doing action movies. Some of those were very good, like Taken, and the first Taken sequel was okay. But some of them, he ended up becoming this kind of, he was stuck in this rut of awful action movies, I felt like.
Yeah.
But in recent years, it's kind of turned a corner where he's going back to some more kind of heavy acting stuff. And In the Land of Saints and Sinners had action for sure, as does this, but it did have some really nice performances. This one has more performances than the last. I actually think Liam Neeson's performance in this film is actually superb in places. So in this, Liam Neeson stars as a character I think just known as Thug. He is an aging, obviously, because it's Liam Neeson, an aging mob enforcer. He works for Ron Perlman's asshole mob guy. And he takes Ron Perlman's son out one day as well to kind of show him the ropes and stuff. But basically, he's estranged from his family. His daughter wants nothing to do with him. His son's died years ago, and unbeknownst to him, but maybe not unbeknownst to him. In any case, he's doing work for Ron Perlman's mob boss, and as part of that, he has to get medicine that he's reselling, drugs that he's reselling, and as part of that, he meets a doctor, and during meeting that doctor, it becomes apparent that he's suffering from memory loss, and he says, the doctor's like, how often are you having this memory loss? And he's like, well, occasionally, and he refers him to an expert, and he goes to this expert, and it turns out he used to be a boxer as well. He has a CT scan, whatever, and it turns out he has this kind of early dementia onset kind of thing, where he's going to lose, not dementia, he's going to lose his memory. He's got memory problems, basically. He can't remember anything.
Yeah.
And the movie's a little, I think I think it struggles to show the passage of time, I think, is the problem.
Right, okay.
Because the doctor says to him, within 2 years you won't be able to care for yourself, basically. So, you know, that's basically how long you've got. He won't listen to this. He's like, oh, that's bullshit. You know, I'll be fine. Just tell me what the cure is. And she's like, there is no cure. Like, this is degenerative brain issue. You're just going to get to the point where you won't be able to live properly. Do you have any family? And he says, well, I've got a daughter and a son and whatever. But obviously they don't speak to him. So he kind of ignores it for a while. He gets into a bar fight with a guy and then meets this woman who he ends up dating. Eventually opening up to her, and he tries to reconnect with his daughter, who absolutely hates him. It kind of almost feels like The Wrestler, but if it was a mob guy.
Yeah. In
a weird way. It's not as good as The Wrestler, but
it's got sort of sounds a bit like that Fast Charlie. That that's the movie that I watched a little.
Yeah.
And then what was that movie I did? I can't remember which one. It was a movie I did not so long ago with I can't remember what the bloody hell it was. Where he's a detective and he's got
One Last Case. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, the sort of the memory problems.
Well, they did a Sherlock Holmes one as well, didn't they? When it was Ian McKellen as Holmes.
Yeah, the Mr. Holmes. That's a really good one.
And he's losing his mind, but he's got one last case kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's a very good movie.
It is a very good movie. He made a very good Holmes too.
Fantastic.
I mean, not that you'd be surprised by.
No, he's just that way.
You mean Sir Ian McKellen can act? Well, what a surprise!
What a shock, yeah. But I thought Liam Neeson in this was superb. His character is pretty unlikable. Like, he's not a nice person. It's made very clear throughout this movie. And it's one of those kind of almost sad things where it's like his condition almost makes him nicer. Like, right. it starts kind of, you know, he starts kind of seeing things differently. I guess he's a lot more vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
You know, and there are some great moments, like, you know, he phones his daughter to try and get back in touch with her, and she's just like, you know, why are you getting in touch with me? And he doesn't want to say this because of this. He just wants to try and, you know, repair that relationship before he dies. But he kind of says to her, and you kind of get this moment where he's like, you know, have you got the number for my son? And she's just like, what the fuck? You don't even know your son's name. Why the fuck would... You know, and then she says, well, he's dead. And she's like, when did he die? And she's like, well, you don't even know his name. What do you care? Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you know, there's a lot of this, like, kind of, you know, back and forth between them. Ultimately, obviously, she finds out. Everyone finds out what's going on. And it's kind of... It's kind of a man coming to terms with his dark past and the action, the consequences of his actions. He kind of sees the people that he's dealing with for who they are, and he certainly sees, you know, some of the real dark side of the people he's working for. And yeah, it's kind of like, you know, a man with a ticking clock trying to you know, reconnect with his family and kind of try to make amends, and there is some obligatory action, but if I'm honest, I kind of wish this film just focused more on just the story of him trying to reconnect with his daughter and this new woman in his life. I thought the acting by Liam Neeson is superb in places in this. You know, it's a complex character because he's a real piece of shit. But then because he's got this degenerative disease, he's losing his memory and he's becoming more vulnerable, and he kind of wants to repair things at the end of his life and stuff. It was really interesting. Now, obviously, this movie's quite low budget, and it's certainly not perfect. Like I said, I think the action bits I would probably could have done without for the most part. There's kind of a almost tacked on plot towards the end to kind of force some action. Although, well, I guess well, I don't want to spoil that, but there is some there's reason for it. But I think that the story of the family was probably enough. We didn't need the gangster violent stuff as well. But I guess that's what people are probably paying for. It's probably in the trailer, so people are going to pay for it. But yeah, I thought this was pretty good. I mean, it's obviously quite a low budget movie, and like I said, it does, I think, suffer with that problem of not showing the passage of time terribly well, because it feels like he's given the diagnosis of like you'll not be able to function in 2 years, and then it's almost like next week he can't remember fucking anyone's name and stuff, and he's really struggling. Whereas up to that point, he says to the doctor, he's like, I forgot where I lived the other day briefly. But then like it's almost immediately it's gone from that to like, oh my god. I don't think it communicates that passage of time terribly well, which I think is the idea. I think that it's meant to be there's more time in between this movie. It doesn't quite communicate, or it didn't quite communicate that to me. But no, I thought this was superb. I think the supporting cast are absolutely great as well. Daniel Demir, Javier Molina, Ron Perlman obviously is always good as that asshole mob boss. Is kind of a perfect fit for him, you know.
Seems to be a sort of what he's settled.
It's a shoe-in, isn't it? It's a shoe-in for him.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is fair enough. Frankie Shaw plays his daughter, who I thought did a really good job.
I must admit that I've got to the point with a lot of the Liam Neeson things where I've just gone, I don't.
I thought that the only reason I watched In the Land of Saints and Sinners was because of the period that it was set in.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this is actually more of an actual movie. There's some interesting stuff here, which then made me think, oh, maybe I should give this one a go. Because I saw in the synopsis that it was about him kind of, you know, losing his mind and you know, I was like, it could be an interesting character study, and it kind of is. Like, it's kind of half and half. It's certainly not a perfect film, but what it does well, it does very well. And Yolanda Ross plays the woman that comes into his life, and I thought she was superb. Her performances with Liam Neeson, their back and forths are wonderful. There's a moment where she's trying to help him, and she basically tells his daughter about the prognosis, and he wakes up and he's kind of confused, and then he sees his daughter there and he realizes that she's told her, and he raises his fist to her, and she's just like, you can tell she's completely shocked. She's like, you were gonna hit me? Like, what? Because she didn't really know what he was like, you know, before. And it, you know, it's some wonderful performances in this film. Really, really, really good. It's not perfect, like I said. It's a low budget kind of movie, and in places it's uneven, but I really liked the kind of character focused elements of this. I think it's definitely worth a watch, uneven as it is, and I would recommend it. I think I'm hoping that we're getting to this point with Liam Neeson now where he's going to get into these more acting roles again, because he's quite old to be doing the action thing as well. And he's such a good actor. Yeah. He's done so much slop. That's a bad word for it, but he's done so much slop.
And that's kind of why I'd sort of had enough of it's kind of him, really, because it's.
But it's such a tragedy when you think of like the movies like Rob Roy and stuff. That he's such a good actor, and yet like nowadays he's known for these naff action movies, and it's like, please, can we get back to you putting in these amazing performances? Because like when he's acting in this, he's superb, and you forget, because he's been in so many naff action movies, that he's a really good actor. So I'm hoping this is something of a return to form, because that's 2 movies now that normally A, I probably wouldn't have bothered watching, and B, I felt like are worth talking about on this show, where the other ones I probably wouldn't have even given a second thought to. So worth a watch, I think.
Okay.
So anyway, what else have you watched?
So I have seen season 2 of Arcane.
Yeah, now I have heard mixed things about this.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard, what I heard is it's not bad. It just pales in comparison to the first. But it's gonna be awkward to follow up on a season like season 1 of Arcane. So because season 1 of Arcane, I was late to that party. I don't think I even reviewed it on the show. I was so late to the party. But my God, season 1 of Arcane was good.
Well, I think
You had a glowing review for
the
this.
year it came out. I think we fudged our, because I think it was,
Yeah, we forced it
COVID,
into our
wasn't
top
it?
5 movies, didn't we? We were like, well, we'll
Yeah,
just put it in.
I think we fudged it because we hadn't seen many brilliant things that year, and Arcane was the best thing I'd seen. It was that first season is truly fucking stunning, and I think in my head anyway, I think it was always going to be a case of I don't think it was ever going to be as good as the first season.
Sure, yeah, it was tall order for sure.
So I think I was fine that I was already waiting for it to, not be awful, but just not as good.
Yeah,
I was fine with that. So, you've seen the first season, haven't you?
Yes.
Have you seen any of the season 2 yet?
I have not seen any of season 2 yet.
Okay. So basically it picks up straight away from what happens at the end of season 1, of Jinx blowing up the council.
Yeah.
And, who survives and what happens. And then it quickly moves on to the aftermath and how they cope with it, and Caitlyn being the heir to the family that she is. She's now basically she's got her mother's seat on the council, and the character of what's the bloody name of the bad guy in this season? It's the big woman, Ambassa, who is the bad guy. She's basically the sort of the main bad guy in this season. And I think already the problem you have with this season, the first, is you don't have Silco.
Yeah.
Silco was my favourite character in the first season. Hands down my favourite character. I absolutely adored Silco because he was the bad guy, but he was doing awful things for sort of the right reasons.
Yeah.
He wanted his people to not be tread under foot, and he wanted, he was just doing it in a fucking awful way. And he was such a brilliant, cool, and I love the relationship he has with Jinx, and so you don't have that because, not really spoilers because it's been out for fucking ages. If you don't know this, he's dead, so
yeah,
we don't have him, and he does appear in it through various means as in this season, various ways, flashbacks and something else. The main takeaway from this season is it feels so fucking rushed.
Really? Because I thought they took a reasonable. Well, I guess it wasn't that long, was it? When you think about animation, maybe it wasn't that long.
3 years, I think.
Yeah, that seems like long enough to me.
But it feels like it feels like at least 2 seasons worth of stuff in one season.
Right.
And even with the first season, when you've got time jumps and stuff, you never felt like you were being.
No, I thought the pace of the first season was one of its strongest points, actually.
This one is just it kind of it felt very much like we want this character to be in this position, so we're going to roll them up to that, and you're like, oh fuck, this is moving a bit bloody fast.
Yeah.
Some of the characters get very short shrift. Hyberdinger, who I was not the biggest fan of anyway, but he gets completely sidelined, and what happens to him is like, oh, okay, that's it then, is it, right? Okay. And even Victor and Jace, they're sort of, because it sort of wants to concentrate on the Vi Jinx Caitlyn thing.
Yeah.
It sort of everything else gets kind of sidelined, and there's a whole sort of subplot with what's her name? I always bloody forget her name. Mel's character, who, it turns out that she's there's a secret that her mother has been keeping from her about her origins, if you like, and what she can actually do. So you get this whole sort of side plot with her that felt really tacked on, and it's like, oh, can we have a bit more detail on this? Can we explore this a little bit more? And the problem is that they are going to be continuing in this world. So I think they've got 3 more series planned, but they're all going to be different. I think things from the world. They're not going to be in Piltover, I don't think. So it almost feels like, oh, we're putting these things in to set up other stuff and it's like, oh, can we not do that? Can we just concentrate on this one now? But it's really frustrating because it's still really beautiful and it's still mostly well done. It's just that it just feels so rushed. And there's, in the first season, you got those sort of the scenes where you've got like they're like basically music videos playing, where they show you a certain character, or one of the best ones is the one with Echo and Jinx when they're on the bridge, and you get this sort of slightly different style of animation, and it shows them when they were younger playing, and now they're there. You get a couple of those sort of things in the first season. This one seemed to have a music video in every episode, and even though they're good, like this, the animation styles tend to be different, and it felt like very much like they were cheaping out. Right. It is rude for me to say that, because even saying they're cheaping out, it still looks fucking amazing, and they do use it to tell a story. They are still, but it still feels like slightly cheap and just rushed too much. Yeah. And it's really fucking frustrating. I mean, I loved certain aspects of it. It's still, sure. I mean, the whole Jinx vibe stuff is still great. It felt it's a little annoying because it felt like they just wanted to redeem Jinx. It's like, we need to redeem Jinx, so we're going to redeem Jinx. We're going to give her this. I'm not really spoiling anything. There's a little. She ends up with this little girl who doesn't speak. She's and she's kind of like a mini Jinx, or she's a mini, I guess, like a powder sort of thing. And Jinx kind of takes her in, as it were, and becomes her sort of like surrogate mother. And it felt very much like, well, you've done that because you're desperate to make Jinx not a villain anymore. Yeah. And that's kind of sad to me, because I want to see Jinx as a villain. Actually, I'd like to have seen this, the series where she takes over from Silco and she properly embraces being a villain. Sure, you could have redeemed her in some way as it was going on, but I liked villain Jinx, and they were so desperate to sort of go, no, she's really a lovely person. She's really lovely, and she's just misunderstood, and we need to redeem her. It's like, it felt a little annoying. And Caitlyn gets a whole fucking character lobotomy. She ends up I mean, you can sort of understand how her character ends up where she is, because her mother, again, it's slight spoilers and stuff, but her mother dies and she ends up sort of replacing her on North Council, and she ends up, kind of not a villain, but she becomes a little more driven to a darker side, and it's fine, but it feels the way they do it feels rushed, and sort of, I'd like to have had a bit more of the relationships between that were going on and what's happening, and you do get, which is, I don't think it's really a surprise, they have sort of other universes, sort of, parallels, sort of factor into this.
Yeah.
And some people are like, for fuck's sake, can we not have fucking parallels and everything? But I think League of Legends already has that anyway. I think there's already sort of parallel universes within game and things, so it's not like it's that much a surprise.
Yeah.
But it's sort of it's I don't think it's dealt with very well. It's and the problem is, for me, as I'm really slagging it off and I'm being really negative. I still loved it. It's still good.
Yeah. It's difficult after season 1 anyway, but the fact that some of it seems to have missed the mark is quite frustrating.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway is that it just feels fucking rushed. It feels like they were sort of it feels like they were so desperate to get everything done.
Yeah, which is quite unnecessary if they've got other seasons coming.
Well, it's not that's the thing. They're not other seasons of this.
Yeah, but it kind of feels like they could have, maybe done better finishing this off properly.
I think it could have done with another season.
Yeah,
it could have. It would have been nicer to have had 3 seasons to sort of really, and maybe it was a Netflix thing. You know how fucking awful they are at it keeping seasons, and I know it's fucking expensive. It's not like it's a cheap thing, but I'm sure they would have had enough fucking eyes on it if they would have had kept a third season.
Yeah,
it's. I would still recommend it because I still think that it's still a lot to love in it. There's still some wonderful scenes. There's still some great, all the performances are great. Ella Purnell is Jinx, and Haley Steinfeld is Vi, and Katie Lung is Caitlin. There's not a terrible voice, performance in it. It's just that there's a lot of short shrift for certain characters. I mean, Savika gets, I'd love to have seen more of Savika, and it felt very much like there was stuff that they could have fleshed out with these characters. But it's so much of, no, we've got to move on. We've got to keep going. We've got to get to the next bit, and we've got to. So, just give it a minute. Just let it breathe, and they don't really do that. I mean, the last sort of couple of episodes, I think, are really fucking good, even though they're a bit sort of. I mean, it depends on your tolerance for other worlds, as it were, other universes.
Sure, if it's done well, And
I think it is. I'd like to say it is kind of done well, but the problem is that the characters that they do it with needed more time and more sort of space to get over what was happening. It's the consequences of what the Arcane, their use of the Arcane, and the consequences of what it is, and how it has affected other other sort of timelines and stuff. I liked. It was really interesting. But if it would have been given more time, it would have been so much fucking better. They could,
yeah.
That's the biggest. So again, it's the biggest takeaway from this series is it just feels so fucking rushed and really disappointing.
Yeah.
But overall, I still loved it. It's still good. It's still a good enough series. Honestly, I think as long as you're willing to go with it, it's still good. It's still beautiful. It's still great performances. It's still a really good animation. It's just such a knock from season 1, it's
yeah,
and like we said, it had a fucking high benchmark, so
it did,
and it's not the fucking worst thing ever. It's not like they completely failed.
No,
it's not I think some people are saying it's a terrible failure.
I hadn't seen that. I had just seen that it was a disappointment compared to the first. But...
yeah, it's not a failure. It's just a disappointing. It's like I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. I mean, I would still recommend, if you enjoyed the first season, I would still recommend it because it's still good. It's just not good enough, I guess, is the disappointing sort of thing. It's really hard to sort of, recommend it on its own, but it's just unsatisfying, I think, is the problem.
Sure.
It's just that there's a certain amount of unsatisfaction in how certain characters were dealt with.
Yeah. Well,
and I mean, if you're into the whole Jinx Vi thing, then that's fine because they're front and center. I mean, there's another sort of thing where you're introduced to a new kind of a new, not exactly a new set of characters, but well, they're a new set of characters, but I think they do that thing where they're trying to get you to feel something for these characters, but because they don't really do anything with them, there's a whole.
Well, they just take up. Then they're just taking up time that other characters that you want more fleshed out could have been.
It's not even that. It's not that they. It's more that they got these characters just for them to die, sort of thing, so that you can go,
but it also adds to the rush, right?
Yeah,
it's like exactly. You're shoving in more characters for the sake of it.
It's a case of, well, I don't really know anything about you. There's like, look, it's a slight spoiler. There's one character in particular that you sort of get a sort of a at least a sort of hook for, but when they're dead, they're like, well, okay, was I supposed? I'm sure I was supposed to feel a lot more for that character, but to be honest, you haven't given me anything. It's not like it was a main character or anything. It's just you've literally set that character up for that purpose, for us to go, oh, but
yeah,
it's that sort of expecting you to but yeah, I'd recommend it only that in the sense that it finishes off the series.
Sure, yeah.
And that it's still a well-made thing, but I think the main takeaway is prepare for disappointment.
Yes, or at least temper expectations, I guess.
Yeah. Definitely temper your expectations because it's nowhere near as good as that. And it does have a sort of a villain problem is in that the cat that she's just Ambassador's just not as good as Silco. It's and it's there are other villains as well, but it doesn't have that core that Silco brought. That you knew exactly where you were and what was going on, and this one just feels like a sort of just a sort of a slight come down from the height of that villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's still good, and I would still recommend it. It's just, yeah. It is not as good. Yeah.
Well, I will probably check it out anyway. But it pretty much falls in line with what I've heard.
I'll discuss it with you when you've seen it.
Yeah.
I think it's still worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
It's not completely awful, even though it sounds like I'm saying it is. I'm not.
No, not at all. No, it sounds. I think I think you got the message across. It's not great, but it's certainly not bad. And it was a very, very tall order anyway. But it sounds a bit disappointing that they kind of missed the mark.
Yeah.
On top of that, but never mind. I will certainly check it out. Maybe we'll circle back to it at some point. Because maybe a more spoilery discussion would be needed.
Yeah.
So on to news, I think.
Yeah, there's not really much.
No, I guess I was going to say that Jim Abrams passed away. Director of Airplane and Naked Gun, Police Squad.
I didn't catch that one.
I think it might have even been today.
Oh, okay.
But I've got a very soft spot for Police Squad and Naked Gun, all those movies. Silly as they are.
Yeah, they're great though.
They're great. I mean, there's this like kind of been a recent trend, at least it's kind of fallen into my algorithm of Instagram showing me, like, there's obviously pages that just post clips of Police Squad and Naked Gun.
Yeah.
Just some of the punchlines and the jokes, and it is like, they are still really funny. Like,
yeah.
They are still really good. It's actually made me think recently I might actually rewatch those, because it's been a while.
A lot of them are just goofy sort of...
Yeah, it's silly like wordplay a lot of the time.
Yeah, wordplay or just real sort of visual gags that just hold up because they're...
timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have a thing. They're just literally him pratfalling or...
Yeah.
Just really fun stuff.
Yeah, like all the stuff with O.J. Simpson, which is kind of awkward now, but all of that stuff is fucking hilarious. Like, I've always liked slapstick, though. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I think a lot of people don't like slapstick. I've always liked it. So yeah, it works for me. And then the wordplay and stuff is always fun to me. So yeah, so that's a writer director that we lost this week. Have you got any news?
Just sort of two, really.
Because I guess the big one was Unification, but I kind of did it as a thing.
So Denzel Washington says that Equalizer 4 and 5 are happening.
Wow, I still haven't watched 3. I remember your review being relatively positive, though.
I like 3 a lot.
Yeah.
It had its problems, but I liked it. I felt like it was the end.
Well, I wonder if it was, and then it made money to where they were like, actually, it's not the end.
Yeah. I honestly... I'm in two minds about this. One is, it's Denzel Washington and the Equalizer, so they're probably going to be good.
Hopefully. I really liked the first two. I thought they were great.
Yeah, the other side is just, I think 3 should have been the end. I think it felt very much like a sort of send-off.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I think I was like, I still I will watch 3 eventually. I think I was kind of put off because from what I heard, it kind of goes more into the like, secret agency stuff world. And more around that, where I quite like the Equalizer to be more of the domestic kind of helping people and then falling into larger plot kind of thing.
Three wasn't really.
I got the impression it was just more of a like, well, now this organization are coming for you kind of movie. Rather than
it's just a family. Well, he goes to Italy and helps out the people of this town.
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe I got the wrong impression then.
Yeah, no, it's not that at all. It's basically he's going against the sort of mafia.
Oh, okay. Because I felt like the second one was kind of verging towards that like secret organization.
The definitely is spy-y stuff.
Yeah, which is why I thought for some reason I got the impression the third one was even more in that direction. I was like, but I want to give it a go. I'm like you though. I definitely share some concern on them continuing this forever. Do you know, it always makes me, unless you have a trilogy or a set of stories ready to go, I'm always a little nervous when someone's like, yeah, we're making like 3 more of these, like Avatar, when they're like, we're gonna make 20 of these movies, and you're like, have you actually written 20? Have you got 20 stories, or are you just saying that as a fucking number? Isn't it like 8 of them or something, or five?
Fuck knows.
There's like a load of them, and I'm like, well,
it seems to keep adding to it. I don't know. But why announce 2?
Just tell us that you've got a great script for another one, and I'm like, I'm all in, and then tell me about the 5th one after you've done the 4th one really well,
Yeah. I mean, it does feel very much like, they're just sending him a boatload of money to do another one.
Sure. Yeah.
They're successful movies. So, you certainly can't blame him.
No, and he always puts in a good performance. So
yeah, he's. I mean, I've heard mixed things about Gladiator 2, but I'm not gonna fucking touch that with a barge pole. So
I wouldn't say. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that's probably not Denzel Washington's fault.
no. Yeah, I think that's a movie that I will probably never touch. So we'll but yeah, I mean,
I feel like with Gladiator 2, there is a chance that if it falls onto streaming and it's free, I might end up watching it at some point. But I can't imagine I'll ever bother talking about it on the show or reviewing it. It'll probably just.
I haven't heard one good thing about it so far. I've heard some.
Yeah, it's all been negative from what I've heard too.
Stuff. Yeah, it just not sound good. But yeah, so Denzel it will be great, I'm sure.
For sure.
And also, the thing is I know I'm going to watch them.
Yeah. There's no reason not to until they make a bad one. So.
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's always the problem. It's that it's got to the point where you've got 3 good ones. You don't.
Yeah, you could just stop here and have a really great trilogy of movies.
Have a nice end. Leave it there, and I think I'd be fine with that. But it is. There you go. What can you say? And finally, it looks like Sophie Turner has been cast as Lara Croft in the Amazon Phoebe Waller-Bridge series.
Yes, I saw that. That's interesting casting.
Yeah,
I think she could probably pull it off. I have doubts on this entire project, if I'm honest, but I think I think she could pull off Lara Croft given the right script and the right direction.
Yep.
We'll see.
I think so. I mean, I recently saw a series called Joan. I don't know if I've mentioned it.
I think I saw a trailer for that the other day, actually.
Yeah, so Sophie Turner was playing a basically a sort of con woman thief in the 80s in this sort of based on a true story of this gangster woman, as it were, in the 80s, and she was really fucking good in it. She's a good
actress, I think.
Yeah, it was a really good show. So she can certainly pull it off acting wise. I've got no problem with that. But as you said, it's like the whole thing, sounds a bit shit, to be honest. I mean, it feels very much like they don't want Lara Croft to be Lara Croft. You know what I mean? It's the games have done that. They've toned her down, and I think the last thing that they got, she was like, helping communities and giving back. It's like, that's not Lara Croft. Lara Croft was basically a rich kid who just liked stealing fucking artifacts and
pretty much she was like an adrenaline junkie rich kid who wanted to steal stuff.
So
it does feel like they fundamentally misunderstood that character.
I don't think they've misunderstood. They know exactly what they're doing.
Sure. Maybe I'm being too polite.
Yeah, they're purposely making her something else. It's not. It's not that character. They want her to be something else. They don't like. First of all, they don't like the idea of somebody stealing artifacts from people, or they don't like the whole, colonization stuff and all that. Sort of
well,
shit.
Look, that's the character. The movie needs to open with her locking her fucking butler in the freezer and then going off and fucking stealing artifacts. That's what she does.
I don't know anybody that has played that.
Everybody did that.
Did not lock the butler.
That needs to be in the movie. She murders her butler. She freezes him in the freezer.
I mean, the last movie was okay.
I remember being pleasantly surprised by it. I couldn't tell you anything about it now, other than I remember watching it and being like, "Oh, this is actually reasonable."
Yeah, good. I mean, I remember McKenna was all right.
Yeah,
I mean, she's a good
it was more based around those rebooted games anyway, and I thought it was it was fine, and those games were really good actually.
I love the Angelina Jolie movies. They're kind of rubbish.
They are what they are.
Exactly. Yeah. They know what they're doing. And,
of course.
And it's just Angelina Jolie running around with guns. What more can you ask for?
Well, that's true.
that's kind of what we all asked for, really. Just that.
I mean, they're not the deepest of games, really.
No.
You know.
No.
But yeah. Oh well. I guess we'll find out. I'm not. Yeah. The casting wise, it's not the worst choice.
Yeah. No. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think
it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge worries me more than anything.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, just based on track record.
Yeah.
Doesn't tend to vibe with me, I'm afraid. But
no, it does sound like it'd be a mess, but yeah, casting wise, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. What else is going on, or is that it?
That's it.
Oh, that's the only stuff going on in the world.
Yeah, anything else?
No, I was thinking that today. I was like, it's actually been quite a quiet news week. Although that's nice because usually it's just death. We've only had one this time, so that's something of an improvement on recent episodes.
Yeah.
So, Thanksgiving. I thought hadn't happened yet. Matt has reliably informed me has already happened.
I think it was Monday, wasn't it?
It may well have been. I know it was this week. I knew that much, but I didn't know the date. We were going to do trains, planes, and automobiles for Thanksgiving. I think, and we discussed that, you know, for us, it's always been more of a Christmas thing anyway, because we don't have Thanksgiving in the UK. So I think 1 week late, we will still do Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and that can kick off our Christmas period of Christmas movies. And
yeah, I'm happy with that.
It's a nice segue, I think, because it's such a good film, and I'm really in the mood to watch it. So
yeah,
ever since you suggested it, I'm like, I really want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so do I, and it's kind of like it's time, you know. It's time.
Yeah.
So we will be back next week with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. But until then, stay safe. Thanks for listening, or watching, or both. And we will catch you next time.